Okay, in this video we'll be seeing what would happen if Charlemagne's empire came back and, got modern technology and all that stuff. This is roughly what it looked like. The red thing is like the main empire, and then the dark red is the tributary states. So, yeah. So the first thing they want to do is go after what's left of Germany because it's this. So, they just kind of, yeah. And so that gets fully annexed. I don't know what you would expect to happen, but it is gone. Now, the next thing is to get more, protection from the tributary states, like over here. So they want a bigger buffer from, like, Russia. So the first set of countries they're going to be going after is Slovakia and Hungary. And at first, the invasion goes pretty well, because they are much stronger. Whoa. And they just push through the western parts of these countries. But Poland is allies with Hungary, so they're going to join in on the war. And now it's a little bit more dicey, I guess. So they start pushing into the German and Czechian, I guess, tributary states. But these guys just kind of fall over pretty quickly. Poland manages to hold out, and they get some more land over here. And eventually the war just kind of stalemates, and so they actually agree to peace right about here. So if we take a look at the peace treaty, these are, Hungary and Slovakia are going to be new tributary states, but Poland is going to get some land out of the tributary states that were pre-existing. And they'll get all of this. Whoa. So with that, Poland is kind of like seen as the hero, I guess. And so they're going to kind of use that. And they're going to make their own alliance, which is against the Charlemagne's empire. Obviously, the other alliances like NATO have been dissolved because then it would just get immediately attacked by like the US and the rest of Europe. But yeah. So with Poland's new alliance, we're going to see countries like Romania, Italy, and Spain and the UK join in. So all these pretty powerful countries are now in this one alliance. And the yellow countries combined could probably beat the Charlemagne's empire. So they're going to need to get some more land and become stronger. They don't have that many options right now, but their first thing is to go after Denmark. So, because they're like fairly powerful, but not really like much of a challenge, and well-developed land. And obviously they're not in the alliance. This island's probably German. So it's going to go about as well as World War II did for Denmark. In a matter of maybe a couple days, I guess, this time, it's completely wiped out. Jutland is going to go over directly to the main Charlemagne government, but the islands where Copenhagen is are going to become a new tributary state. It kind of is, like evident that they're going towards the Nordic countries. So they consider joining, but none of them do yet. And, after seeing that, they decide to turn their focus down here to the Balkans, specifically on the Adriatic coast right here. These, what is that? 2, 4, 6 countries. So they're going to go ahead and start an invasion of what's left of Bosnia and Herzegovina. But Serbia is going to see this as an opportunity, and they're going to join in on this war. And mostly to liberate, like, these parts, because I know that's, like, kind of unstable, I think. I don't know. But anyway, they start pushing in. Serbia also begins pushing in over in the west. Charlemagne manages to secure most of this, but the Serbian troops dash out to the coast, and then they start going after Montenegro. And the reason for this is because they want a solid barrier to protect, like, the Balkans from Charlemagne's empire, because they want to join the Yellow Alliance after this. So they also knock out Montenegro, but unexpectedly Charlemagne continues in, and they just starts pushing into Serbia. So Serbia now sends out their application to the Yellow Team because they kind of have to now, but they decline because they don't want to get in the war yet. So Serbia did not make a good decision by joining in on that war. And eventually they're pushed back to here and die. So in this peace treaty, Charlemagne's empire is not going to get directly any land, but Bosnia is going to be added to this. This sort of Hungarian one is going to get Vojvodina back. This is going to be a weird border, but it's fine. And then Kosovo gets full independence. Montenegro and it are made tributary states, so I guess it didn't get full independence actually. And then finally, Serbia just has this little chunk taken out of them and given over to Montenegro. So yeah, Serbia is still a thing, but they're not doing great now. They do join the Yellow Team, so that's something for them, I guess. So now it kind of, settles down for a couple years, because there's not that many more places they could go, really. The Balkans are, it's pretty far away from the core of the empire, so it's going to be pretty hard to maintain control over that. The Nordic countries are pretty strong, and obviously they can't go over the Yellow Team. But after maybe 8 years, they decide that they're going to kind of recolonize. Because, after learning about the world's history that's happened in the past, 1,400, or no, it'll be because this was in the 800s, so it would be 1,200 years. But in the past 1,200 years, they learned about the history of, colonization and all that, and they decide that sounds like a good idea. So they're going to go after Algeria. Algeria is pretty strong, though, but they have gotten a very strong navy, so they're going to push into this northern section with relative ease. But some of the other African countries are going to kind of see this as a threat to them. So we're going to see Libya and Tunisia join in on this war. Charlemagne's empire, continue to push down this coast and make it all the way to Morocco. But over in this area, they kind of get pushed back. Now they send over another, section of troops through the Tyrrhenian Sea, I think is what that's called. They land over on this little peninsula of Tunisia, and this area was relatively undefended, so they start rolling through it, as well as pushing along the coast down here into Libya. They then meet up with their other front line and continue to push in. By this point, Algeria is, even though they've only lost this northern part, that's the only thing that really matters. So they're pretty much done. Tunisia is also, reduced to just desert. Now they start pushing into Libya. So, over the next couple of months, they just continue to push along the coast until they capture the entire thing. Then they make another, small push into what's left of the not desert. But surprisingly, the African countries don't stop the war, surrender. They know that's going to be really difficult for them to invade into the Saharan regions, so instead they just hold out in little oases, I guess. And so it takes a long time, and a lot of troops die, but they do manage to push them back all the way down to here, kind of walking through this desert and having heat strokes. And by now, there's literally no one left, so these countries just capitulate. And in the peace treaty, we're going to see this. Well, these three countries are completely made into colonies of Charlemagne's empire. And yeah, that's not great. Now, this war seems like it went very well for Charlemagne's empire. But the thing is, this did have like a heavy effect. This cost a lot of money and a lot of troops. And also, just to make it worse, Sweden is going to join in on the yellow team. So now they're kind of, the yellow team starts mobilizing for an impossible invasion, and with how many troops with how much equipment and how many troops they've lost, it's not looking good for them. Because they know that they need to do something, but they don't really know what. So they decide that they are going to make an invasion of Norway. Now Norway wants to join the yellow team, like they're very heavily considering it. The government has practically agreed on joining yet, but they haven't officially put out their application. So technically, they are still free game. So they declare war on Norway and make a landing over here on the coast and pushing up. Norway is supplied by the yellow team, who also gives Norway instructions just to like hold out in these more rugged areas because it's going to be very difficult to invade. So they quickly take over like all the important parts of Norway, but after that it's a very long, hard stretch of this mountainous terrain, or I don't even know if it's mountainous, but it's definitely freezing cold. So and it's specifically timed. They hold out into the winter too. So now all these troops and equipment are stuck up here in this freezing cold area. Most of them are like half dead, and it is now seeing this opportunity that the yellow team is going to join in on the war on the side of Norway. Norway just got capitulated, but you know. So, yeah, now this isn't looking good. Pretty quickly, they start an invasion over here in the Italian peninsula, taking over all the Adriatic coast. Yep. Italy and Romania and Serbia's troops all work together to cut this off and push up here. Poland begins their assault down here. There's a lot of naval battles happening over here with the UK. They do have some success. They push into Spain a little bit. They take this, what's it called, Sardinia. And now, interestingly, they go to Morocco and they say, we have all these colonies right here, so if you don't help us join in this war, then we're going to invade you and colonize you. Now, Morocco only agrees because Spain is, like, their enemy. So, surprisingly, Morocco is going to join in on the side of the red team. With that, they begin to push into the Strait of Gibraltar, wrapping along this coast and eventually cutting it off, taking these three islands. They then launch a counter attack down here in this Tyrrhenian Sea coast, as well as capture Sicily. Basically, what they're going for, well, why did you split in half? What they're going for here is to have like complete naval dominance over the western half of the Mediterranean. Right now, they probably look a little something. Their navy probably looks a little something like this. So obviously that did go pretty well for them. With that though, the UK manages to make a landing over here. And this is some like actually very important land, so that's an issue. But because of how important it is, it's pretty heavily resistant to invasion. They also take a lot of these troops who are, starving and freezing and dying, and they just kind of tell them to charge at Sweden with whatever they have left. So all the troops that invade Norway die, but they do manage to get Sweden all the way down to this, which is, that's still like most of their unimportant land that they only captured, but oh well. Over here in the Balkans, it's going very good for the blue team as they take the entire like actual peninsula. Free a lot of these tributary states that don't have much resistance, especially in Hungary and Slovakia, and down here. And now they sort of begin. They consider to go through the German one, but that's decided that it would be spreading out too thin. But the spies of the red team actually hear about this, and so they decide that since it's going to be relatively unguarded, that they're going to push in, and so they take that. Over here in Spain, it still is not going great, as they push up over here, take like all the major cities, and now they're just left Galatia, or whatever that's called. Britain is doing much better as they take over Brittany and wrap along this coast. Yeah. Over here, all these tributary states are completely liberated, and they start to push back in this invasion over here. Now actually beginning to go into Germany. But over here, they can take complete naval control over this and start surrounding Italy. Now, obviously, this is a pretty big issue, and this entire front line collapses, and then Italy is forced to capitulate. Spain is also finally knocked out. However, over here, Sweden has been holding out pretty well. It's mostly stalemated in the north, but in the south, they kicked out the Charlemagnians, whatever they're called. Britain continues to invade down here, making naval invasions on Denmark with the help of Sweden. They also take over the Danish tributary state, and finally take all of Jutland, and now come up behind these troops and knock them all out. It's completely, they then finish off that state, and that, completely unifies this front line against the Carolingians. I think that's what it's called. Carolingians. Something like that. Then they take Malta, because that's going to help. Now, after this, the war kind of stalemates. They have a lot of their troops down here in Morocco, from Morocco, pushing up and just kind of holding back these front lines. And, by this point, the war has gone on for a very long time. Probably at least, 3 years. So, everyone is gonna... So, after the blue team makes one final push, taking over the rest of Sweden, and then moving into these German areas a lot, they eventually finally decide to settle for peace. So we're going to see how that turns out. That's not right. There. So over here, you're going to see a new country be formed. It'll probably just be called France, but it's going to be this northern coast over here. It's fairly weak, but it is something. Denmark is going to regain full independence as well as take over some of this. The German tributary state will become independent again as, Germany. And they will also get some land. The Netherlands will also be released. Norway will... Oh, hold on, let me bring the colors back. So we have this. Norway is going to be made into a tributary state. Oh, that's a little too dark. And so they look like this now. They're completely made into a tributary state. I would imagine in the coming years that they might end up breaking away because they're very disconnected from the main empire. They have to go through all of this just to reach them. And, there's Denmark, Germany, and the Netherlands all here. So that's a little awkward. Over here, they take over all these Mediterranean islands. Italy is done pretty terribly. They're reduced to only this little tiny piece over here, which is, of course, made into a tributary state. They're going to keep their colonies, and as a little incentive for Morocco to have joined in the war, they also give them a decent chunk of Algeria. That's one of the other. That's another reason on how they convinced Morocco to join in on their side. Because I know Morocco and Algeria don't like each other. Well, I think they don't. And so Morocco is bigger now. And Malta is a tributary state. Spain is not going to be made into a tributary state, but they are going to be getting hit pretty hard. A very good portion of this northern region is given over to the Carolingians, including Galatia. And Morocco is also going to be able to grab a lot of the Strait of Gibraltar, kind of reversing what was here before. Because I know at one point in history it was like this, but now it's the other way around. I guess Morocco will be red too. Over here, the borders are going to be kept pretty much the same, with some slight changes. We're going to be seeing this sort of weird neo-Yugoslavia form. Kosovo is officially independent, though. And I don't really know why they would do this, but I decided that they do. Czechia is going to be coming back, as well as Slovakia is going to get their lost lands. And the borders over here are probably going to get redrawn, because, yeah. Hungary actually gets a pretty good chunk of Austria. It's left like this. And probably will still remain a tributary state. Czechia and Slovakia are both mostly fine now, although some of this eastern region is left as a tributary state. Maybe not that much. That. And I think that might be it. So this is some very interesting borders. They lost a good portion of land up here in the north, but they do have a lot more in the south now. They have an ally in Morocco, of all countries. They have some colonies in the north of Africa. There are definitely a lot of Belgian independence movements, because, I mean, it just looks like it should be independent, but for some reason it's not. They have these two random little tributary states over here that are tiny, and then Norway. If we isolate this again, like that, yep. This is a very interesting looking country. I mean, Morocco's not part of it, so I guess I'll remove it. But it's it's probably going to break apart in the next like 20 years. But for now, that's where this video is going to end with this. So goodbye.